recording has started.
Okay, this is the International Segway Polo Association Board of Directors meeting on Sunday, December the 13th. This is Ralph speaking as treasurer. Roll call. Sherry?
Yeah, let's do a roll call. We will have Ralph Luther.
Here.
Jens Grafforst.
Yes, I'm here.
Sherry Ozdemir is present. And our chairman, Mr. Funke, is absent, as well as our vice chair, Mr. Van Riesen. So our next point of order would be to approve the minutes from the November 15th, 2015 meeting.
I approve it.
I approve.
Okay, we have a first and a second, so that is approved. And we can go ahead and move on. Did you want to go ahead and take over, Ralph?
All right. We don't really, we don't have anything planned for here. We don't have, Alexander and Olaf with us today. Instead, we have brought in, Mark and April. More about that in just a minute. So no scheduled presentations, no action items. And on informational items, Sherry, if you want to just give us a rundown of how the elections went, and that will allow us to introduce Mark and April.
Certainly, yes. We had our elections wrap up yesterday, December the 12th, and we have unanimous voting at this time. Mr. Weller will be joining us as our new vice chair, and April Barson Harrison will be joining us as our new secretary. That will all transition will take place in January. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's Baron Harrison, Baron.
Okay, sorry about that. Did I get it right when I sent it out?
It came to as Barson.
Okay.
Barson Harrison. It's fine, just letting you know. So.
I apologize, yes. Hopefully I've got it right in all the dictation. We had a 30% voter turnout, which isn't as good as we would have liked. I personally would have liked to have seen more participation from board members in encouraging others to vote, either through personal contact, social media, email campaigns, whatever it might be. The election buddy went out twice showing the ballots to everybody who was able to vote. And also we had, of course, Facebook and social media aspect in that respect put out a couple of times, but I don't think anyone ever translated it to German, which may have been a bit of concern to me anyway, a contributing factor to the low count, perhaps. Of course, we do also have the fact that it's an off year as far as no WAS Cup next year, which we found at the end of last year, December 2014. We had a big push of membership, encouraging people to go ahead and join, and that way they would already be members for the upcoming WAS Cup. And I think that really encouraged people to vote. We did not have that particular aspect this year, unfortunately. And I think the other contributing factor was most likely the fact that we only had one candidate for each slot, and our voters will get complacent thinking that their vote, doesn't count, so to speak. But I would have really liked to see more support from the general membership. But 30%, it's not too bad. And we have our positions filled with capable, wonderful people, so definitely looking forward to whatever you both have to bring to the board. And that pretty much wraps it up. We used Election Buddy again, and that's very easy, straightforward to set up. And once we get the bios and all from the candidates and their picture if they like, plug that in. And get the voter lists, which the treasurer, Ralph, you definitely greatly appreciate your efforts in that respect in figuring it out exactly who is eligible to vote. then that information also gets fairly easily plugged into Election Buddy, and I think it wound us costing $19 US, which is incredibly good price. So that there is that. And Ralph, I did send you a request to be reimbursed for those $19.
Yeah, it's, all our visitors are gone. I'm going to try and do that tonight.
Yeah, no worries. But we definitely want to keep those kind of things going. Not so much the dollar amount that I put out, but just for future things that, like when Olaf put out quite a nice sum of money to get the referee headsets. So we just want to keep everything formalized in that respect. So does anybody have any questions about the elections other than what I've already advised? No? Okay. I can actually see who voted and who didn't, so we're not going to name any names on the recording, but yeah.
Sorry, just to clarify, how many people were invited to vote?
117.
And that's the net number in terms of emails that didn't come back, that all went?
Those 117 emails went out. Only 2 bounced, which was fantastic record keeping. One was actually Mark Weller, but he provided his proper address and we resent him a ballot. And the other one was one of the members of the Lebanese team who never responded. So, but that's fantastic.
Mark's number was wrong. Okay. Do you remember that?
Yeah, apparently the email address that was initially in Election Buddy for whatever reason was wrong, or I don't know, it just bounced back, but he provided a corrected one. So, that's good.
It was pulled out of Teamer, or where did it come from?
It would have come from, it should have come from Teamer, yes. So what we have in there might be incorrect.
But it was from last year, or when did you last?
Hang on, it was the correct email. For some reason my provider bounced it back, because Sherry emailed me on the same email to say your email is incorrect.
Okay.
Right. So, well, that's really good though. I mean, there were a lot bounced back in 2014 election. I would say there was probably 8, and to only have 2 this time, and 1 apparently an error. That's really good. So I was very happy in that respect.
And you said you were able to see who voted?
I can see who votes, yes. On Election Buddy, you cannot see who they voted for.
Okay.
But you can tell, have they submitted their ballot, yes or no?
Okay.
So the voter turnout, was that the 30%, is that higher or lower than you normally would see in this kind of election?
It's actually, that has varied quite a bit. It obviously depends on the number of people involved. When the group was very low, it was actually a very high turnout. As the group expanded, the turnout lessened. Last year in 2014 was our best turnout. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere in the area of 67%. It was really good. But 30% isn't too bad, I guess.
What happened is last year we all made a bigger effort to encourage everyone to vote just because there was an actual vote. This year we encouraged people to vote just to show the support. But I can see that from some of the teams, I mean, if why nag and push your members, and in every club there's only always 1 or 2 people at the most to push in the other 5 or 7 to do something. If it really makes 0 difference, or only a very small difference, then I think that's still a pretty decent turnout.
Yeah, I think so. So.
Okay.
Okay, so any other questions about the elections or the process?
No.
Now, Sherry, if it when the time comes for me to run these kind of processes, are you going to be all right with me emailing if I need some help?
Actually, it's not the secretary's duty to run the election. It's the election committee's duty. I just happen to be the election committee. By myself pretty much this year, except obviously with Ralph's extensive help in getting the membership information all in an orderly fashion. But it's a separate committee, so I am more than happy to continue in that role.
Cool. Brilliant.
We have an email address, elections@secpolo.org.
Yes.
That we can use for those purposes. Obviously, that can be reassigned at any time. But we just set it up at the time because we knew we were going to be needing it at the end of the year. And, so, yeah, we can, as Sherry said, that's fairly open. Do you actually have the bylaws, Mark? And, they're on the website.
We'll have a look.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually reviewed them yet.
They are not 100% consistent, huh? There are some, we haven't made it a focus. Every board every year says we need to review them. We found a way of making them work, but there are a few things from an administrative point of view of just keeping the organization going. They work now.
Yeah.
They didn't at first, but there's some other things about the terminology of members and teams that isn't quite consistent. But that's something depending on we didn't consider it a huge priority, to change that. I don't know, Sherry, you have any other comments on the bylaws otherwise?
Not particularly, no. We definitely need to, do some sort of cleaning up, so to speak, as you stated, but they're not too hard to follow.
Yeah.
Obviously, any changes to the bylaws, whether it be adding board members or anything that would substantially change within the framework of the organization, would need to be proposed in a very specific fashion and voted on by each member of the board. And this would include adding I don't think it includes adding subcommittees, but I'd have to double check. I think we can add subcommittees without a board vote. But you can look that up in the bylaws.
Boards may appoint standing and ad hoc committees as needed. FI.
There you go. I think that's one of the reasons we lean towards subcommittees instead of adding additional board members. It's more fluid, doesn't require quite the formal voting, and obviously shorter time frames that the individuals or groups can participate. More clearly defined goals.
Right.
So, all right. What we can do, Mark and April, now in preparation for the January meeting, we can have a look at the bylaws and then we can exchange emails about what some of these things mean in practice or any questions you have. And then we can formally discuss them if needed so that there's a record of that in the next meeting during the actual handover.
Okay.
Yeah. I've just downloaded the bylaws now, so I've got them.
Okay, cool. Alright, if there isn't anything else on the elections, then I think we just have we have the lack of, Olaf is not here, and unfortunately we didn't get the email that was mentioned in the minutes, and that he told us he was going to send out to start a discussion on what subcommittees to focus on. So we've dealt with that item. And then we come into new business, not on the agenda. I don't know if anybody, I think we have two issues there that I would like to bring up that we've kind of discussed.
Yep.
But one is the hoverboard and the potential negative publicity or association of segways with the hoverboards that are causing all sorts of problems, and whether ISPA should take a formal position or give out a statement, or at least provide something for the members, for the teams, that if they feel like they should be saying something, whether we should have something, an official statement on.
Do you think it's affecting the sport of Segway Polo? Do you think other teams having comments? Is there quite, is there a problem with it that's being reflected in Segway Polo, would you say?
What's prompted me to post it on our site, our Facebook page, is that I've had colleagues and other people asking, and they consider us the experts on anything self-balancing. So they're going like, oh, I want to buy this, or my cousin or my nephew or somebody for Christmas. And obviously to give them some sort of advice initially was just, well, I've used one once for a few minutes in Germany, and yeah, they're fun, but they're not Segways, and they're not, I mean, while you can jump off them much more easily than off a Segway, they have two issues. One is that they may shut down all of a sudden because they don't have the same redundancy. And the other one is that the battery technology and the charging technology may not be as inherently safe as the one used in the Segways.
Yeah.
But you know how sometimes people say, oh, my Uncle Ralph has two Segways at home, so he's been using them for how many years and they're perfectly safe. Mm-hmm. So then some other uncle gives the nephew a hoverboard, says, here's your Segway, and all of a sudden the two concepts get mixed up a little bit.
Yeah, couple of things relevant to the UK. The press appears to have stopped calling them Segways, and they are now calling them hoverboards.
Yes.
And we had our first death earlier in the week, where some young boy fell off.
Yes.
In front of a bus. Dan, if you saw that.
Yes, we saw that, and we figured it could have probably happened on a bicycle too, potentially, or you could run in front of it. So I'm not sure that's but. They kept the name Segway out of it there, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah. Cool. And then or the standards, the Fair Trade Office or Trade Standards Office that blocked some shipments. In the UK specifically.
Yeah, and there's a lot of trouble here, but my personal feeling is I don't think we need to take a position on them officially, because they're not Segways, but I don't have a strong opinion either way.
Yeah, I particularly in the UK, because they're all of those kind of machines, Segways and the hoverboards, they're banned here anyway, and honestly, there's so many regular pieces going out to remind the public that they are banned. Only probably 2 days ago, there was something out on one of the newspapers just to remind people that Segways are banned in public places. So we're getting a lot of kind of that at the moment. I always think it's better to kind of keep kind of quiet until this time kind of passes, and then start sending out some really positive stories.
Okay.
But you've put something on your website, you say already. Sorry, Ralph, I've not had a look yet.
It's on the Segway Polo Club of Barbados. It's just a post.
Yeah.
And I was going to leave it at that. It's just I had personally been approached by 3 different people on an opinion on hoverboards and how suitable they'd be. So I thought I tried to be as neutral as possible. And then when the news came out, and even here in Barbados, so what I did is I linked one of our local online newspapers that picked up the story about the Trading Standards officers seizing 15,000 unsafe hoverboards.
Yeah.
And then I have also just today added that Amazon is pulling the hoverboards from their store. I think they've taken out some Some companies already, you can still find them, but there's far fewer now, and apparently they've sent messages to some of the manufacturers or resellers saying sale of those is pending some kind of safety review.
Yep.
Yeah. So I try to not jump the gun and make assumptions. I made sure I had various sources of what I was putting out there, and I tried to listen.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Inc. has not put anything forward trying to distance themselves from these hoverboards.
Yeah.
I mean, they rarely say anything anyway, but this might be something that, all this negative publicity might stir them, but I guess not.
Yeah, they don't seem to be very active in the PR marketing world, do they?
Very strange. They seem to have some interns doing some sort of fairly unprofessional looking things, I've noticed. Segway Inc. doesn't really help with those things.
I mean, I would say we should probably, particularly in the UK, just stay fairly quiet because we don't really want to be associated too much with the hoverboard. If there's been a death particularly, Segway needs to, kind of take a back seat, really, I would say. Because then people just kind of link the two, and then there comes the story of the guy that died that was the distributor in this country, and it just goes from one to the next. But, yeah. Oh dear.
Okay, no, that's fine. I think, I don't think Olaf or Alexander saw a particular need to put anything out there, so that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up. I think it's one of the responsibilities of the board to at least discuss it.
Yes.
So I don't know, Sherry, is that enough for that on that topic?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm in agreement as far as I don't think we really need to take any official stance. I don't think it needs to be addressed, at least not yet. As April was saying, the more and more they start calling them something else, not a mini Segway, then the less we have to even concern ourselves with it.
Yeah. Cool. And then the other item, that new business that hasn't come up, is the opportunity here with Megan Scott from the UK, indicating on Facebook that she was looking into doing a blog or vlog on Segway Polo. And that has prompted almost simultaneously Alexander, myself, and Olaf to get in touch with her and encourage her. That's something the board has been discussing on and off for quite a while. And obviously, with April now coming on board, we're going to have a lot of expertise on that particular matter. And I think the idea would be that the board members, I mean, the thing we've always struggled with, we all have great ideas, but just that monthly meeting and those 90 minutes or 2 hours that we spend on this and the emails we exchange, while we're still trying to keep Segway Polo going in our local clubs, hasn't really allowed us to do a lot more than just keeping ISPA running, which is administering the membership and the finances, essentially. And so when this opportunity came along, obviously we wanted to see if A, there was no conflict with UK Segway Polo, and B, whether it could be done as a semi-official, or at least for now be somewhat not just Megan personally, or not just UK Segway Polo, but like some kind of global representation of Segway Polo, which maybe somebody in Sweden may pick up and reshare with the translation, and likewise in Germany. So I think that was the idea. But I don't think it necessarily meant, while we started discussing, I just want to make clear that didn't mean that Megan was going to, from now on, be responsible for ISPA's PR and media affairs and all of that. That is, I think, still always going to be under the board's control, and the most qualified person on the board, to the extent that he or she is prepared to deal with that, can then take on those responsibilities. But I think I've said before, the board should be setting guidelines and policies, and then find someone to actually do it. Now, most of the time, it is the board members themselves that actually have to do that. But once there is a member that's not on the board and that is showing some initiative, I think we want to make sure we don't turn them away or are not receptive to that.
Yeah, I think this would be a good opportunity for us to talk about the subcommittee aspect of it, and perhaps make that a subcommittee PR, or if you want to break it down into different types of PR, that's fine, whatever we want to do, or just make a subcommittee of a couple of people, including Megan and perhaps April and whoever else is interested, and having them work with each other as a sort of a united front on exactly what they want to put out and, somewhat approved. I mean, the board wouldn't necessarily approve everything that goes out, but some sort of oversight so we don't just have one person throwing up whatever they want on a blog, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, if I can add, I've discussed it a little bit with Olaf, also at the time, and Shay, I don't think, I'm not sure yet whether it warrants giving it as a subcommittee. I think we need to have at least one board member to have, and there's two different things. I mean, there's the social media aspect and there's the official communication. And I just thought the initial communication that's going to come from Megan would be something quite personal. And I just wanted to make sure there's a possibility going forward that whatever platform she uses to publish it could eventually be integrated with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously one starts thinking about, okay, is it a vlog, is it a blog, and then then the next thing is the newsletter. And I have to admit, I'm starting to feel old because I'm certainly aware of vlogs. My initial reaction to communicate with people is still via a newsletter, whereas I'm not sure that's still quite representative of how people share ideas or news nowadays. Or certainly there's a generation that probably doesn't. I've come across several people now who say they don't actually look at their emails more than once a week, because if we want to get hold of them, send them a WhatsApp message.
Yeah. I think it's a sign of the times that everything now is being communicated in either short texts or short videos or just literally pictures with a caption. Mm-hmm. Everyone is so time starved that it's all going through those kind of mediums. But I think Megan is very good at with her Facebook and Twitter, and I think the video blogging, I think she's going to be excellent at. And as you were saying, Ralph, that was exactly what was in our mind as well. Having her video blogs incorporated into various websites. It may, it could be used further afield for the other Segway Polo websites, because it's only going to spread the word further with the more sites that kind of support this. In terms of the PR side of it, that kind of takes a little bit of more careful handling, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone is in agreement there. And I'm hoping that you will be able to help us with that or take on that responsibility. We haven't really discussed exactly how much time you think you can make available. And again, with the challenge the board has always had is that the people who volunteer to be on the board are usually the most active in their own organization. And also, I don't think, and I don't know how the other board members think about this, and maybe Alexander and actually, let me try Alexander now and see if he can come into here, because he has some experience. Let's see him there online yet. But, to me, and Sherry, this goes a little bit towards the subcommittee on PR and stuff like that. If we have limited resources, I would rather spend the limited PR and media expertise we have at a local team club level than at the ISPA level. I don't think ISPA is a very effective vehicle to make Segway Polo more popular, other than that we should be trying to coordinate that if one group in one part of the world publishes something that would benefit the others, it should be shared.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent that's where somebody like Megan, who probably spends quite a bit of time looking at different social media sites, whether it's Facebook, once she has some idea and everyone knows, look, if you have something interesting, a little video from your practice, or some local news clipping, whatever language that may be in, because somebody decided to run a little story on the Segway Polo Club of this town or that, then that can go to Megan with a copy, obviously, to the ISP board. And she can then integrate that in her vlog or a blog, or otherwise have that maintain that central location. So we have one place where all of it is, while crediting the original sources where it came from.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
So I don't think it needs the expertise that April has necessarily. Now, April, we will need your expertise if we're going to go and do official press releases, or if we ever get into a situation where we need to provide something for sponsors in terms of raising.
Absolutely, yes, I agree.
Right, but that's what Megan is there for. Absolutely not.
Correct.
I was going to mention that because, as you know, I look after the PR and marketing side for the UK.
Yeah.
It isn't too difficult for me to alter it slightly for certain other markets and regions. So I'm quite happy to kind of just transfer the details over so that it's relevant for the for other regions, where it's needed or required or useful. It really just depends on time, what time I've got, but I'm really happy to make some time for that. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing it anyway. It's just a case of really adjusting it slightly for the different market. As in, I'm talking about press releases here, for example. Mm-hmm. Sponsorship proposals, things like that. Again, happy to share those. It seems like there could be quite a lot that we could do. But ISPA is kind of the overall governing body, so I think it's quite key for ISPA to be putting out more official statements as and when possible, just to try and get the name more recognised.
Yeah, if we have the time and resources, just remember the board so far, we haven't really had anybody fully understanding what channels to use to get these press releases out, and it wasn't a priority in terms of signing up with any services to get those press releases out there, and other than publishing the odd thing on Facebook or on the website. But again, I think I still feel it's not ISPA's role. I still feel we can support somebody who has that initiative, but I don't think ISPA is relevant enough, and every press release or every communication that comes out from a team or a local organization is going to be 10 times as effective as anything that comes out from ISPA. So in terms of time spent, I'd be more comfortable with April spending promoting the sport more, using most of the time on promoting it in the UK to grow the sport there and make it stronger, and use the available time for ISPA on the policy side of things and the general direction and the coordination, but not so much the banging out press releases or sponsorship proposals.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion, and there's other board members who may think differently on that.
I mean, a lot of the work April's done in the UK, working especially with the TV crews, is not particularly UK based. It goes out around most of the world. So it's only a small step between the two, and it might have more gravitas with ISPA's official backing than just the UK, because for our benefit, it going to Verizon or even it going out on BBC Click, it's viewed more around the rest of the world than locally.
Oh.
So if it had the official backing of ISPA, it might just carry that bit more weight.
Yeah. No, I think that's, Olaf made that point also. He said, look, Ralph, when I go to somewhere, if I can tell people the sport is global and there's an international organization that administers it, he says he gets a lot more credibility.
Mm.
Yeah.
So.
Is there, the website, is someone kind of working on that at the minute? Does anyone need any kind of support with the website?
Sherry and I are the ones who've been updating it.
Yeah.
Not very frequently. If you would like to have a go at some of that, I think, Sherry, do you remember how it worked with we've not really figured out how to give full admin to somebody else, right?
No.
Because I use this Sherry as login, so, actually you will have that anyway. So for Team Access, you can use the secretary at secpolo. Is it? Yeah, this is at secpolo.org, isn't it? The login that we use. Basically, there is a master admin for the TEMA website, and with that you can get to anywhere and everything. So Sherry and I are accessing TEMA now, so I've been cleaning up the member database and assigning people into different groups and generally playing around with it a little bit. And one of the things you can do from there is update the website.
Okay. Because the other thing as well I was going to do is the Wikipedia, and I thought whilst I'm doing that, I can just kind of transfer the relevant information straight over to both yours and parts over to ours, and just do it all in one go, basically getting it kind of more current. And
yes, yeah, no, it definitely needs some updating. That would be great if you could do that. Yes, yeah, and it makes sense to tie that in with Wikipedia, and then again, it probably makes sense to, once you have a somewhat final version, to send that out to all members so they can update their websites also.
Yeah.
So I think that's another part, again, where ISPA's media or PR communication strategy is that we should encourage the members' Facebook pages and websites to have some link or reference to ISPA, and a little background of what it is all about. We've noticed some don't have that.
Yeah.
So you can have a look at our website if you want, just for what we've thrown in there generally, on the background of Segway Polo and things. But Nevin did all of that, and at some point it'd be nice for the ISPA website to look a little more up to date.
Okay.
Oh, and I did pop in there in April. I did pop in there and correct your name. Very sorry. So if you refresh, it's correct now.
Right, I think I'm gonna bring in Alexander. Let me see here. Whoops. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Apologies for not being on time because I thought it was at 11. I don't know why I came into me.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, but not good because I'm late.
Swedish person are always late, like the Switzerland.
Yes, that's correct.
Olaf, I don't know if you've seen Sonia's email, so he's not available.
No, I haven't. I've been kind of offline during the evening because we have a kind of Lucia thing here in Sweden on the 13th, and I had dinner with my mum.
Oh.
So, I'll just check into my emails.
Okay. Well, we've approved the meetings, and Sherry gave us a rundown on the election, so you can listen to all of that later when it's published.
Brilliant.
We've answered a few questions that Mark and April have. Mark's downloaded the bylaws. One of the questions was what are the secretary's responsibilities? So initially, Sherry explained it's making sure that we conduct our meetings and our general business in accordance with those bylaws. And then we went on to new business, not on the agenda. We discussed the hoverboard briefly and felt that the consensus was we didn't need to make a formal statement or anything. I think April commented that in her experience, to lay low a little bit, the hoverboards are already not very frequently using the Segway name anywhere in the news releases and things, and I think April, you suggested wait a little bit and then come out with something positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and then we were just now on the topic of Megan's role and communication, and to what extent ISPA should be doing a lot of press releases, or to what extent that should be with the individual clubs and teams. And in the process of that, we were coming onto the website.
Yeah.
And updating the website. And April had asked me a few weeks ago already about who was updating Wikipedia. So she's going to look into that, and Sherry and I will provide her with access to Tima so she can update the website when she feels she's ready. And that's where we were, I think.
Thanks for the rundown.
So we've got we're at the new business not on the agenda stage. So did you want to add anything, Alexander? This would be your chance.
Yeah. Well, I think from my perspective, the only thing is that I'm going to reach out before Christmas now to Rod. Because he said they were appointing as a general manager for Europe, and we should wait until that has been appointed. So I'm just going to send him an official email and follow that up. Probably because he's responding pretty good also on Facebook, I'm probably going to send him his message there as well. And what I'll do is, should I include maybe you, Ralph, or you, Mark, in that mail as well to him, following that out?
I think you should copy Olaf and Mark, and copy me on it too. I mean, at the end of the day, we still think that they've made a commitment to support the last World Cup, and we haven't gotten anything from them. So that's a concern I think all board members should have. So if you're unable, even Alexander, even after you're no longer on the board, to continue following up with them, then that certainly needs to be among ourselves. We need to decide who's going to take over the chasing of Segway.
Yep. What I'll do is I'll send a follow-up email, and I'll also do that on Facebook, and I'll send the CC copy to Olaf, Mark, and you all. And then we see what the response is, and after that we can But I can surely be pursuing Segway Inc. if nobody else is doing that in the spring. And hopefully they'll have an appointed general manager for Europe, as he said, and that will. For your information, also, I had a good talk actually with a distributor of Segway Sweden now, the new one, and they're right now as we speak in China meeting with Ninebot for general talks. And after Christmas, they want to, or after New Year's, they want to have a new meeting with us here in Sweden and see if we can do anything. But it's too early to say anything.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Any club or activity updates for the winter from Sweden?
Not really. It's too cold to play any form of Segway polo outside here right now. It's -5 today. So it'll be spikes on in that case. So, but no news. The teams are still intact, the Finn Devils, the Stockholm Vikings and Stockholm Saints. So we're waiting to the spring season. We will start training again in March, probably. April probably.
Okay. Sherry, any other new business anybody wants to bring up before we go on to the member comments?
Yeah, Ralph, any update for Polo in Paradise? How's that coming along?
Again, as of now, I will go out and contact again everyone who I have an email address for. We have a few people who've booked, about 20 odd, but we still have places. And our last practice was this morning, which I missed, and we're going to start again probably in the second half of January. But everything is on plan.
Looking forward to it, yes.
So, yeah, we'll probably end up with 50 players in total, of which, well, we can handle 50 to 60 probably. I would expect around 40 visitors, playing visitors, and then with family it'll be a few more.
Yeah.
Based on the feedback we've gotten so far, but I'm quite happy with the interest we have so far.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Bo, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
How was Nicola's tournament?
Nicola's tournament was a great fun tournament, and we had a lot of new players from England, and thanks to Mark and April for this. And I hope they had fun. We did.
Did.
Okay, good. And yeah, it was a quite fun turnier like every year, and we're planning for next year, so we'll see what we'll do.
We will be there.
Okay. You're always welcome.
Good. Sherry, what's going on in the US? You want to give us an update?
Well, not too much right now. Just like everybody else, it's the weather is challenging us as far as our weekly routine goes. But outside of that, we do have one person out in the Midwest, Jim Wilcox, who's been a polo player since day one, so to speak, who's currently looking into making some mallets, either for people in the U.S. or abroad, whoever's interested. And he's has a couple of different designs of the mallet heads that he's experimenting with. So it was very good news for us here in the U.S. to hear that he's still involved, and even though he's moved literally thousands of miles away, that he's still interested, he's still involved, he still has his segways, he's still batting the ball around somewhere out there in the snow, and now potentially maybe a supplier of mallets for us as well. So that was wonderful news.
Okay. Good. All right, anything else you want to add?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. And, Mark and April, if you want to tell us what happened at your winter tournament maybe, or of course any other comments you have.
Well, we had 6 teams in total. We had the American production crew film for Verizon customers, and that footage is due to go out in the first quarter of next year. So I'm just waiting now for a copy to be sent over to us, and when I'm able to, I can share it with everyone, and hopefully it should make for some good watching. I think they did put quite a comical spin on it, but the main presenter absolutely loved it, and he was a bit shaky to begin with, and then he just wanted to go off on his own with a mallet, so he's kind of hooked. And actually the producer and the director both took the contact details for Wheeling City Tours, which are the East Coast Segway Polo company, and they're trying to arrange either something in New York City or something over in New London. So I think it was a positive tournament altogether. We had Carl Uda Martinez run the commentary again, and we had a local MP run the prize giving. It was freezing though, but it was nice. It did the job.
We did have 50-mile-an-hour winds on the Saturday, which made play interesting.
Ouch.
But the matches, especially the second day, were all very, very close, which it's nice to see that we're making progress here in the UK.
Good. Glad to hear that.
And then we've got another meeting in mid-January with the players from this area, just to discuss some possible dates for tournaments for next year. So obviously we better run them by you guys so we don't clash, especially you, Bo, so we don't do the same again with the St. Nicholas Tournier.
Yes, it's always in December normally, except this year. But it all worked out.
Okay. What do you think of the I don't know if you had any discussions with Andreas, the announcement that he's having an event at the end of February?
We told him he had to have an event. He must organise one. It's interesting he doesn't want the A teams to come.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably as good an idea as any. But we will be there. We will support him. I'm not sure how many of our teams will go, because obviously, like everything, it's cost.
Mm-hmm.
But we will definitely have one team there representing the UK.
Okay.
And it's great to see yet another opportunity to go and compete.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think, reading in between the lines on Facebook comments, it is important that the new teams also have, successes.
Yeah.
And, whether that's done with running 2 pools of top-seeded teams and bottom-seeded teams who play each other, or whether to limit. The nice thing is I think we're getting to the stage where if you have limited capacity for 8 or 10 teams, you can be fairly certain now that you're going to fill all of those spots. So at that point, some kind of a selection process has to come into it, and rather than going with first come, first serve, I think it makes sense to restrict the playing ability. And at some point we've discussed this, we may have to limit the number of teams that can play at a World Cup.
Yep.
And then it would probably be the better teams. So I don't have any problem with Andreas saying he'd rather have the B teams to avoid those whitewash kind of scores. Yeah.
I can tell you the opinion from the German teams here. We are very upset about the emails and this post was there. I can only talk. I'm now speaking as a dragon and not as a ISPA board member. Okay?
Yeah.
As a dragon, I was very upset to say which team from the Blades is a better one and the second one. Yeah, because if I understand his opinion to say, okay, I want to play against teams, I don't lose 13-0 or something like this. But when I want to do like this tournament, I have to do an invitation tournament and not a post on Facebook.
Yeah.
You could say, okay, I asked this team, I asked this team, and then it's okay. Nobody is upset and nobody's angry. But on this Facebook post, no team from the Blades will go to Hanover.
No. I understand.
So it's off the record, we are really pissed off.
Well, you made that statement on a recorded line, Bo, but I understand. I understand. You definitely preface that with this is a opinion of yours and your fellow team members, not in the role of a board member. I fully appreciate that.
Yes, it is.
I do believe in his defence that his intentions are good, even if the way they've come across wasn't ideal. I don't believe he did it with bad intentions.
No, sure. I'm right. I said, okay, he can do this if you want to. He's the organizer of this tournament, and he can say who he wants to come to his tournament. Yeah? But what will happen? If I say as a dragon, I go to this tournament, and I lead 5-0, should I talk to my teammates and say, don't shoot any more goals? I can't do this.
No, I wouldn't think so. Ralph and I were talking offline earlier about this very challenging topic of how do we do a seeding process? Do we do the big tournaments with a group A and a group B, so to speak? And if you do, how do you put those teams in there? Because some people will have the view that they don't want to be lumped in with this group B, so to speak. So what do? Like playoffs up front first and then you seed them? Or the other option would be tournaments like the one that Barbados is putting on, which is more of a fun tournament where everybody's mixed. That's another way to get around the view of who's better than who and who's going to make these decisions. And okay. I guess in this case is what you're saying is the organizer would, which seems perfectly valid.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I think Andreas, again, he didn't mean any harm. He just probably, again, made to his best extent an expression, and unfortunately it took to some extent, people saying, oh, what's this? A, B teams, maybe C teams, whatever. And I replied to it with, we can march in and be nicely. But I think that the primary thing here is that from a Saints perspective, and this, when we first played against the Funky Turtles, we were hammered with 7-1. That's it, And there will be teams coming into the scene because the sport is growing, which will get hammered by 7-1 against any one of the Blade or the in Zollingen there, or any one of the Mammoths. But over time, I think we at the ISPA needs to start having some sort of understanding in, okay, as Ralph also stated earlier, you will have WUS Cup. The next one will probably be where teams will not be able to attend because of the amount of teams that until that date, that is in 2 years, will have formed and start training as well and become pretty good. I mean, Mark, what do you have in England right now? Is it 6 teams or is it more?
We've got 4 or 5 teams who can sort of put together, but some of them are a little spread out, so it's difficult to pull them together. But yeah,
I would say in 2 years' time, when we have all of 2016 and the beginning of 2017 behind us, I hopefully, for your sake as well, would hope that there's about 6 to 8 teams in England.
Our plan is 8 teams, 8 local teams. Yeah.
So 8 local teams in UK. Germany will have the same. Hopefully we in Sweden will get something going, and then we will get more teams here. And at that point, we need to start saying qualification rounds or football. They have pre-matches before coming to a big tournament say who is qualified in and who's qualified out. And at the same time, I think of the utmost imperative invitational, where you have these teams that are mixing, because I think that's so valuable in building a different culture into the Segway polo sport that is not maybe common in other sports. There are mixed teams and the all-star teams from different, but it's not that regular. The people there, they're playing in clubs, and then they go into national teams. So, and I think the invitational, as you stated, it's important then that we go out with information to everybody who wants to organize something and saying, you can do an official tournament. In that case, we need to have maybe some sort of rating of teams or individually based on previous performance or whatever system. You can do an invitational. In that case, you handpick which teams you want to invite in and see if they respond or not. Or you can have a mixed tournament. Because I think from the spectator and sport perspective, and that's also something for you, April, to think about together with the new board, is how do we want to convey Segway polo, as a sport? Do we want to have it as a fun thing, or more like, I think when we had the Woods Cup here in Stockholm, one of our television teams in Sweden, I'm going to send you the link, April. They did a great job of, I think they filmed Carmen when she was getting ready for a match, how she put on the gloves and the shoes and the helmet and was basically preparing for a good match. And it was very seriously made. And I think it's important that we don't have just these 13-0 games, because you want these, like Malmö the other week, they had over PSG from Paris, and they got beaten by 6-0 in football. And it's not a good spectator sport then. So I agree. I think it maybe was bluntly written out. I think also we should be open and say he probably meant to his best intent. And as I wrote, Saints versus Vikings. Vikings know how we're playing at Saints, so they're on our matches from time to time. There's equal stands because they're reading us really good. But of course, against maybe other teams that we don't practice against so often, then we have an advantage. But I think over time that it's inevitable. We're going to need to have some kind of selection system or qualification system or similar. That's my humble opinion. But I don't think he meant anything boozy with it or badly. It just came out a little bit wrong, maybe.
Yes, but Bo, I would like you to consider it and maybe talk to your German colleagues about their decision to just boycott it, because there are enough divisions already in the world without creating more, because somebody said something that maybe was interpreted correctly, maybe wasn't. And I know it's your teams, they can make whatever decision they like, but I would like to not see more divisions created. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Mark, I'm just speaking for the blades. I'm not speaking for the butterflies. I'm not speaking for the X-turtles or the turtles. I'm just speaking for the blades here in Solingen.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking to you as for the blades of Solingen.
Okay.
Some people make some bad things, and I'm not asking you to change their minds. I'm just asking you to ask them to reconsider and think maybe once more to try and keep the sport open. People make mistakes. I'm sure I've made mistakes, and I'm sure everyone makes mistakes as to how they portray things. But to take their word and just say, no, we not come, just ask them to reconsider, or at least have a think.
Yeah, we discussed it today. We had a small Christmas market at Ralph Koenig's house, and there were a lot of our people standing there, and we discussed the Facebook post, and I think there was no one who said, okay, I will go to Hannover now. Because we have two teams. We have the Pirates and we have the Dragons. And when you read the post, you have to say, okay, the Pirates are not allowed to come because, in their opinion, that's the first team from us. And the Dragon says, we are not. What do you say? We're not. Nicht schlechter.
No worse.
Not worse than the Pirates. We beat them also. So, are we the second team? No, we're not the second team.
I understand this, and I understand it was a mistake, and maybe it's time for more talking to try and help people understand.
Yeah,
well, in that case,
I just want everyone to be happy and work together.
I think what he's trying to convey, and I understand your point, Jens, to 100%, but what he's trying to convey is the point, and he did it bluntly, surely, but that we all do mistakes, as Mark said, and I think also it's a lot of, too much division in the world going on all levels and in cases. And I think that there's a couple of things you can maybe try to do here. Do a post on Facebook, like we understand what you said. I think the intent he had was that he wants to create a good tournament in the city. And again, nobody should be held back. If you have the possibility, either you can form a joint team from, like Barbados have done at times when they're coming over. It's not the Flying Fish, it's not the Rum Runners, it's Barbados playing. Maybe you can form a mixed team out of Solingen. Whoever has the opportunity to go, if anyone has. We might do the same in Sweden. I'll see if we can scratch a team together or ask the Finns. And because I think the intent is having a good equal tournament, and it's possible here under, what do you call it, and then you will go there and win the whole tournament with 13-0 anyway. And show him where the table should be standing. But I think, again, I don't think you made it with böse Absicht. And I think in that case, if you feel offended, then maybe ask for an excuse on Facebook, and I'm sure Andreas will write one back and say plumply by me, I'm officially saying this was not very wisely, maybe stating in A and B teams, and then reconsider. And if you still can't go, then you can't go. That's all fair income, But again, I think I hope and I don't think he made it with a bad intent. It's just that you probably don't want like when we played the first match against the Hanover in the summer. I don't know what your score was, whether it was 7-0 or 7-1 or 9-8 or 8. But I think he wants to have a good spectator sport in the city. He's able to also take people over to the venue. So when people see this sport, they say, wow, this is a good game. This is an intense game. This is a game where a lot happens. Because again, if I go to football and I see one guy is winning with 8-0, it's not really a fun game.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if I go to a football match and I want to support football, I go to the first Bundesliga. I don't go to the Regionalliga.
No, if I may, Mo, I'm sorry, but I think you've got this completely wrong, and I'm very disappointed. Unless the strong teams support the weak players, and I think you're missing a great opportunity picking your 6 weakest players among the Pirates and the Blades and send them there and let them get competitive experience in playing in a tournament. I don't think it's Andreas's problem that you got upset because somebody got called B team or second team. That is your problem. That's not Andreas's problem. And if you can't handle that, then that's your player's problem. But you're missing an opportunity to bring up your own club's level of playing by giving the weaker players that do not get as much playing time in the competitive matches in a World Cup or a European Championship. And I think that is what Andreas is trying to provide. And we've had this same challenge here. I have, as you know, come through with the all-dominant Flying Fish that won 2 World Cups in a row. And we had the same challenge here with the A team and the B team. And in the end, it was financial constraints that forced us to form a Team Barbados. But to some extent, one of the downfalls was Balve and the Flying Fish, the original 7 playing together and really playing quite disappointingly. And because we had missed to mix and give the weaker players an opportunity. Now, our 7 strongest players are no longer the 7 Flying Fish. And I think that's the opportunity you need to see. But that seems to have been a challenge also of the Balve teams with the Mammoths and the Cavemen having virtually no fresh blood coming in and no new players. I mean, you guys in Solingen at some point had a 3rd team and you've mixed up things, and I think that was a very good decision. So I'm kind of surprised that your players are now upset, because I would think it's a great opportunity. It actually allows you as a management of the club, rather than telling someone, you can present this now as an opportunity. Yes, nobody wants to be called the reserve player or wants to be in the 2nd Bundesliga instead of the 1st Bundesliga. But if you have an opportunity like this, you present it in a positive light, and you'll actually get, you bring up your overall level, because when the guys come back from the tournament, your more experienced players will have better opponents when you practice. And that's what we've done here, and it's worked out great.
Yeah, but also our weaker players?
Yeah.
Yeah. They get in every tournament the opportunity to play. We changed maybe in every checker for playing, and everybody can play in the tournament. So there is no discussing in our club which is a weak player, which is a strong player. And maybe I said it wrong. I think if he wants to support the sport in Hanover, and that was his intention, for a spectator, isn't it also good to see how strong teams play against each other? Because when you look at a game, Saints against Flying Fish or Barbados, or
I'm not sure.
No, I think
World Cup finals.
That's across the game, and you can see what could happen in Segway Polo if you see strong teams playing against each other.
Yeah, I agree to some extent, but I think if you're talking about spectators new to the sport especially, they wouldn't know a strong team from a weak team. All they know are how equally matched the teams are. And that's what makes for a good game.
Point, yeah.
But they will see the difference in how they play against each other.
Well, if you have equally matched teams, you shouldn't see a big discrepancy.
But we're not suggesting that's the way forward. This is just one tournament. It is a bit like Segway Polo in Paradise, where we're mixing up. I mean, it brings down the quality of each team, but I think it raises the quality of the game overall. And I think, again, that's what Andreas is trying to achieve. I mean, the guys don't want to go there. There are teams that lose, and I mean, the Butterflies, I'm surprised they're still playing, but they keep coming out. But they need some success at some point. And if they keep playing against you guys or against the teams from Valve or against us, or the Turtles, they're not going to have those successes. And it's a lot harder for them to attract new players. The biggest thing you can get is win a tournament, and all of a sudden people want to come out for practice and play. You know that from 2010 and 2011.
Yeah.
You came second here in Barbados, and then you won in Folsom. So I think that's what he's trying to achieve. And this is not going to be the only tournament or major tournament in Germany. I mean, there's going to be other tournaments where that are going to be very competitive. I mean, we've talked here about only inviting the top 3 or 4 teams. We've discussed that here. Invite a Solingen team, a Balve team, and a Stockholm team.
Yeah.
And play a 4-team tournament for 3 or 4 days. A lot of Segway Polo at the highest level. But I don't think it'll do any good for the sport overall. And ultimately, it's self-defeating, because unless we grow the base and we get everyone to play more and play better, we ourselves won't improve. We have no incentive for a while.
I don't know. I think there are many ways to achieve the goal you want to reach. So I don't know which is the best way. Now it's his tournament, and it's his way to announce it. I would have done it in my way. If I had like this tournament, I wouldn't post it on Facebook. I would ask the team captains, would you like to play in a tournament with me?
Yeah, but
that was my way. That's his way. Okay, that's his way.
Yeah, but I think here's an important part. It's his way or my way or Ralph's way or Mark's way. I think we have a unique opportunity within the ISPA at this moment when we're like a toddler. We're starting to take our first step. I thought of it today and I said, from an entrepreneurship perspective, we have had innovators. They've been playing Segway Pool since 2006, 2007, 2008. Then we had some followers, or in early adopters and followers. And we're starting to get a little bit of momentum right now. And I think it's extremely important how we start, how we start communicating. And Andreas is new to the sport. His first tournament was this summer. We're coming from different perspectives, different backgrounds. And that's why I said I think it's wise for ISPA to maybe write just a simple A4 page and go out to the community. So when we have a Norwegian team or people coming on board and they have an idea of showing or giving them a handout and saying, this is the culture, this is what we want to foster within Segway Polo community at this stage. We don't want to have, spectator violence on the sides, or when we get, that we can hug each other after a good intensive game. I think it's extremely important that we, oh yes, he made a bad expression, but that more or less is, it's like in the big world. Oh, one guy plumped up, and then we're going to boycott them or do whatever. I don't think, again, what Mark said, I think building bridges at all times is better. And if we get new people in that needs a push on the way and saying, you could have expressed yourself more wisely, he probably will acknowledge that. And then you say, okay, I'll be the bigger person here and I'll forgive him. Or we forgive him as a club. Or we start in some form or shape. And there's going to be So that's what I'm trying to convey here. And I agree with you. There's, of course, you want to have good people, or maybe as a spectator, and I think I wrote that as well. I mean, maybe you could have a Blades, you will have a final game that is maybe more intense. But at the same time, if I'm a spectator coming there, we have a unique opportunity also to get people start playing this sport. And if I see people that I can say, oh, I can do this. If I see somebody who's kick ass in let's say basketball, I make a video go like, that's too far of a distance for me to ever be playing on that level. Whilst if I see a farmer team, I'd say, oh, this hockey things look cool. Well, they're pretty good, but they're not that good, so maybe I can join. Or they're playing friendly. They're not playing, very, very intensely. Like I said, there's coming a lot of prestige into, when we're playing tournaments and everybody's want to win the ultimate tournament, and it's getting harder. And I know some guys from the US have said to me, oh, take it easy against us right now when we're playing, because we just want to have fun. But not all teams are just playing as for fun these days. Teams are going on their competitiveness. And I think what Ralph is trying to say here is, if I had the chance to send some people from Saints and some people from Vikings and some people from Finn Devils, I would do it because they will get better trained.
Can I have everyone's attention just for a second here? If no one objects, Steve would like to put some input in on this subject, and I'll hand him my headset and he can put in his opinion, comments. Is that okay?
Always welcome, yes.
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Yes.
Excellent. Just a moment.
Oh, you need a break. Okay. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Hi, Steve.
If you want some historical perspective, there was some discussion long ago, I don't know, I'd say 4 or 6 years ago, about possibly having different levels or different I don't want to say different leagues, different categories. And back then, this was, I think, like shortly after the 2009 Waz Cup. A lot of the American players really felt that the type of player that was showing up was very different than what we were used to seeing in the U.S. And, I'm not trying to say these guys had the right perspective at all, but it definitely was different. They always felt that, the polo was supposed to be a bunch of high-tech geeks or whatever way you want to put it, and they're off, playing a very genteel game, and we're all really polite. And they kind of felt when Barbados came in, and I'm not trying to offend at all here, Ralph. So,
don't worry.
Don't take any offense here. Showed up with a bunch of really strapping young men who, knew how to play, field hockey, and, were just incredibly good with a stick and, dribbling, shooting, all that. And, they're looking at this and they're saying, we're 20 years older than these guys. And they kind of wanted a senior division of ISPA. And, with that said, the 2 cents I'm trying to offer to your discussion here is, there is a lot of reason you would want to potentially have a senior division or a B team division, and allow teams. It gives teams a chance to a waiting period to become competitive, or in the case of seniors, it's an age limit, and they say once you have to be over 50 to play, or all your players have to be over 50. I don't know how practical any of this is to implement, but I did want to offer the perspective that it's been discussed before, and I don't know whether our sport's large enough, but I could foresee that 5 years from now, if we've tripled the number of players, we might move in some direction to set up, a senior division or a B team division of some sort.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, well, I'd also go and say one more thing just real quick, and that was that I definitely feel the decline of polo in the United States is due to our aging players, and the fact that with every subsequent year we would go, we'd see a younger crowd and end up lower in the standings. You know, I'm not trying to say that any of the American teams should have been given any, you know, handicap or anything like that, but I can tell you that it's a bit what's the word I'm looking for, Sherry? Disheartening. There we go. Disheartening.
Let me ask you, if you had the financial wherewithal or things being equal financially, would you think you'd get more support to form a US team if you could play in a tournament as suggested by Andreas versus another Zurich Cup or a West Cup level that is open to all teams?
My personality says I want to be competitive. Okay, so I like it the way it is.
No, you personally, but in terms of getting...
Right, I know. I'm just letting you know my bias, okay? And I've been accused of this by other American players quite often, which is you're just trying to make a competitive team. And these are obviously people who question whether they could perform on a competitive team. And so that's my bias is to, look, just get better and be competitive. But with that said, I think a lot of American players aren't ready to invest the time necessarily to get better. I have a crew here that right now we're playing in Sacramento, and they really put in the time. It's impressive, and they've really gotten better. But for, you know, maybe more casual players, not just in America, but other places that maybe want to practice once or twice a month rather than once or twice a week, having a B team division would be useful. Now, how you decide whether a team is in, you know, the A team or the B team division is difficult. The senior one, we're lucky, right? Because we have an age bracket, right? And we can utilize that, and everyone has ID that proves their age. I think if you do decide to make divisions, you have to have a very clear way of putting, of guiding a team, if they make the choice, into one division or the other, or potentially, in the worst case, precluding a team saying you've gotten too good, you gotta go up to the A division, or, you know, you gotta move to this other division. But ultimately, I think it's a good idea to start planning for divisions. I'm not sure if it's too soon. Mark, you suggested this idea, right?
Yeah, early on, I think, as the sport grows, to have two levels gives those lower down a chance to at least get some competitive games. I'm not sure we're ready for it yet, and I still think the point here is not to ostracize a new team because they used inappropriate language to try and get their point across. And as Alex said, it's about building bridges, not chasms.
I didn't hear all the details in the previous conversation, so I can sort of see where you're driving at, though. One thing I would say is this. Mark, you're in a really great position. You're pretty much where USA Polo was about 8 years ago. We were growing, and we had a group of people who were excited, but I will tell you flat out, you know, being crushed 3 times in a row in Waz Cup really sent a lot of people scurrying for the hills, and they don't play anymore. So I can see, Mark, why your biases would be towards potentially making a second division. Let's just call it that, not a B team. A second division with some criteria that would ensure that the most competitive teams couldn't enter it. And I think it'd be wise. It's a very good business decision on your part. And I think it'd be good for the sport because it acts like an incubator. And I like that word. I'm going to say it one more time. Incubator for teams who are in their first year or two of playing. I don't know if that would be your criteria for how, you know, maybe you can only be in this thing in this division for 2 years, but it would clearly show a new team that's just learning, you know, the ropes on where they could go to start moving towards being competitive. So I said my bit here. You know, I'm more than happy answering more questions. I just wanted to sort of toss out a little history and a little bit of advice for Mark, who's kind of, you know, reliving what we went through here in the United States.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to pass this back to Sherry, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, well, that was a good little discussion of the topic. I think, yeah, I mean, there's the issue of the somebody feeling offended and then reacting, maybe overreacting against it, but I think it's an important issue that has surfaced.
I think it's something that the board needs to address for 2016, and also, again, giving maybe out directions for people that want to arrange tournaments. Next time there's the Dutch Dukes, maybe they want to arrange something, or the Spaniards, or for the next European Cup. If there's like all of a sudden 25 teams running up for the European Cup, and the organizer can just arrange for 16. Should they have first come, first serve, or whoever can show up, or how should you then? So I think it's good that this discussion came up, and we need to address it during 2016.
Yeah, I think ISPA could create guidance to help new clubs promote their kind of tournament in a way that doesn't upset people.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest point in 2016, to get a way for organizing a tournament with more than 20 teams. So I think 20 teams, we could have been 20 teams in the WOS Cup this year in Germany, if the Dutch Dukes will come. And I think 20 teams in 4-day tournament was quite a lot of playing. And if we get more teams, I think ISPA should take guidelines for an organization to say, okay, how could you handle more than 20 teams?
Well, there's two things. I think one concern is the organizational challenge. The other one is what's best for the sport. And I think until we see the interest again from so many teams, I don't think we really have to worry about it. I think we need to encourage everyone to have as many opportunities for as many teams to play and to enjoy when they go and play.
Yeah.
So if ISPA limits the format and type of tournaments people can have, I don't think we're helping the sport.
No, maybe I'm wrong. You understand me wrong. I don't want to say that ISPA has to regulate how many teams can play in a WOS Cup, maybe, but maybe we have to think about to have like nationale Vorauswahlen.
Sorry?
Yeah, national pre-selection or national pre-elimination games.
Yeah. No, I mean, if nobody's come forward so far to even host the next European Championship, as far as I know, we don't have anybody really. We have some ideas, I think, some expressions of interest for the 2017 World Cup, but I don't know if anybody can really predict how many teams are going to be wanting to play in the World Cup in 2017. Whether it'll be barely 20 or whether it'll be 25 or 30.
Yeah, but what I talked to Olaf this evening, and he said that he thinks about organization of Zurich Cup next year, 2016.
Okay.
So I don't know how far he thinks about it, but that was one thought of him, and I don't know if it's then the European Championship or is it just the Zurich Cup. I don't know. But then we will have the problem with which teams are allowed to come.
Yeah, no, I mean he obviously the tournament organizer has he decides how many teams can come, and then the sponsor, if it's a Zurich Cup, but if it's a European Championship, it would probably be fair to fill, if there's a limited number of spots, with European teams first. But if there are just six German teams. Let's say he has 8 spots, and there's one team from the UK and one from Sweden and 6 from Germany. Then from a Zurich Cup point of view, it may be more interesting to limit the number of teams from Germany and allow other non-European teams to play, for example. Not saying that has to happen, but that could be in the interest of the sport.
Yeah, sure.
So, okay, well, we clearly need to have some more discussion on that topic. I didn't expect really my mentioning of that tournament to take this much time, but it's good that we did talk about this. So I think we need to wrap it up here at some point, unless there's anything else pressing that anybody has now thought of during this last discussion.
No.
Because we're recently 2 hours. So can we look at a date then maybe? Or Sherry, is there anything else in terms of formalities?
No, we just do choose a date and do an adjournment, and we can go ahead and turn off the recording and go from there, basically. If we're looking at a Sunday and we don't want to clash with Mark, I believe you said you have the 10th is not good.
The clash works fine because as long as the timing's the same, that's fine. I'll meet.
Then that would pretty much be 1 month out. Would be Sunday, January 10th at the same time, which is, I believe, 9 p.m. GMT.
Yep.
So everybody knows the time. And for myself and Alexander, it is very important that we are both in attendance because this will be our official handoff.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're talking 9 GMT, right?
Correct.
Because I'm going to be on the other side of the world that day. So I'm going to be in 7 o'clock in the evening for me.
Okay. Are you going to be able to make it, or should we put another date?
No. I'll make sure I'll be able to make it. Just let me go into my calendar quickly. I'll be 10th of January, right?
That is correct.
That is on the Sunday. Yeah, that should work fine.
Okay, then we have our next meeting scheduled for January 10th, 2016 at 9 p.m. GMT. And Luther, since you have been running the show here, you can go ahead and do an official adjournment, and we'll turn off the recording.
All right. I guess with that, we finish the board meeting, International Segway Polo Association Board of Directors meeting of Sunday, December the 13th.
Thank you very much. Recording on.